next thing we need to look at now is how to write our first web page. Maybe on your desktop or somewhere, you have a particular folder that is meant for this class. So I'm just going to create a folder inside. I'm going to create a folder inside my folder here, and it's going to be for this class. So I'm just going to name it cohort 1, something like that. So all I'll be creating, all the files I'll be creating will be saved inside this particular folder. I like to arrange my folder so that I work well with it. Inside my cohorts file, right click and create a new text file. And this text file, I'll call it first-page. Please, this is very important. First-page.html is going to be the first page we are going to be creating today, just for us to see how it works. So I'll open this with my editor. I'm actually using VS Code, but code editors don't matter. Anyone you wish to use. So I hope you can see my screen. You can still see my screen, right?
Yes, I can see it.
Yes, sir.
I wonder why it's not showing. So for us to create our first web page, we can just type anything here and say hello world, and yes, we actually have our first web page. So I'm going to be opening this in, I think for your Sublime, once you right click, you should see open with browser. Just copy the parts here, Ctrl V. Yeah, so we've actually created our first web page. So you can see hello world. Now, with this, we can now start working on our project. So first of all, what is HTML? I'm going to increase this browser here. The way this stuff works is that we will always be referring to the internet to give us info on stuff we need. So if I just type HTML and press enter, so my search option, you see some few resources. W3 School is one of them. Well, let me just add it like a search. What is HTML? So we have some few stuffs here. Let me switch this to Google. Okay, yeah. So here's what I wanted. Wikipedia gives us the first definition about HTML. So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It is standard markup language for document designed to display in the web browser. So we are just seeing an example of something displayed in a web browser where we can see this hello world here. Let me zoom in a bit so we can see clearly. So we can see the hello world displayed on our browser. So that's what the HTML does. Just provides a kind of markup for us to be able to display stuff on our web browser. Then it went further to say it can be assisted by other technologies such as the cascading style sheet, that's the CSS, and the scripting language, that's JavaScript. Having seen what HTML is, let us proceed to looking at what HTML looks like. Like what HTML looks like. If you see this page now, when I right click on this page and view page source, now this is actually the code that is running that particular page. There's a lot of JavaScript. It has been compressed. Let's wrap it. Wow, it has really been compressed. So we can't see very well what the elements are. But if we close this and open, then do a right click and inspect. Okay, if we right click and inspect, here's what we now see some major building blocks. You can see here div, style, div, h1, showing us stuffs that were made up the web. So at least you can see how these scripts and files and stuff all came together to form the display that you see on your web page. Now we are going to look at HTML elements. I'm going to be sharing with us a cheat sheet that I've created here. So this particular cheat sheet tells us everything we need to know about HTML. HTML is just about elements. So that's why this cheat sheet is just full with elements. HTML is about elements. Anything you do with HTML is about elements. So it's either you're adding attribute to the element to give it more power, or you're adding element inside another element. But HTML is to build structure. So it's only elements that are used to create these structures. So to look at elements now, we are going to look at the first part of our cheat sheet here, which is the first one. Says the syntax to write HTML elements. So if you look down here where my hand is hovering, if you can see my screen, the HTML element begins with an opening tag. It is not optional. It is compulsory that a HTML element will have an opening tag. Now, the opening tag can also be accompanied by an attribute. An attribute is optional. That means you can see HTML tags without attributes. Then the next thing is that the element has a closing tag. One thing we should note about HTML is when you open anything, you must close it. There is no two ways about it. If you open any tag, any element, you must close it. There must be a closing of that element. So as we run this course, I'm going to be appealing to everyone that if you create an opening tag, immediately create the opening tag before you start writing the child elements or text that will be inside. So the next thing that the HTML element contains is the child components, which is optional. So not all HTML elements have child or children. The children can be another HTML element or just plain text. So that's how the HTML element is. So let's quickly look at an example by diving into our code. Our very first web page, we want to just write an example of an element. So there's an element called HTML itself. So this HTML is actually an element, and it houses two very important elements for us to build our web page, which is the head elements, and just after it is the body elements. So these are all elements, and within each element, they can contain just text or another element. For instance, the HTML element you can see here contains these two children, which is the head element and the body element. Very vital things to note. And you notice that the HTML element has this opening tag at the top here and the closing tag at the bottom here. Very important. Any element you open, you must close. It is not debatable. It is not arguable. You must close the elements. So let's bear that in mind as we proceed in this class. Now, we have said that elements must have an opening and a closing tag. However, there are exceptions, which we call self-closing tag. The reason for this is that some elements don't need to have children, or will never have children. So if they will never have children, why then do we need to have this structure where we have the opening tag the children, then the name. Since there will be no need, there will be no children, we just close the tag by itself. And this is an example of how self-closing tag looks. So you have the element name, then attributes, which is also optional, then the closing tag here now. That the closing now is within the same tag, but with a forward slash just before the closing angle brackets. So please note that this brackets, which we'll be using, is called angle brackets. So this is here, this particular bracket is called the angle brackets. So when I say angle bracket, I'm referring to this particular bracket. And an example of a self-closing tag is the meta tag. So like this tag now, it has no closing tag, but it has been closed inside here. So it is self-closing. The opening tag is a closing tag as well. So it is self-closing. Another example is the HR tag, self-closing. Another example is the BR tag. Don't worry about what this tag, what BR element, don't worry about what these elements do. As we proceed, we'll be looking at each of these elements one after the other, and to also know how important they are to our web page. Now, having looked at the HTML elements, we're going to proceed to see some common elements. Some common elements, as you can see on the third part of our cheat sheet, is you see the H1 down to H6. So let's quickly look at that. We have some common elements. Those elements start from the H1 like this. So this is a heading 1, and it is followed by the H2, which is heading 2, the H3, which is heading 3, the H4, which is heading 4, the H5, which is heading 5, and lastly, which is the last hierarchy of heading, is the H6, heading 6. So these are all headings. If I save this and open in a browser, so I'll open my browser. Let's reduce the browser back to this size so we can see what is happening. So I'll open it in my browser. You can see the different heading hierarchy. You can see that the H1 looks bolder and larger, signifying that it is the most important heading. Please take notes. It is the most important heading. In most websites, you have just one H1. Search engines like Google and other search engines recommend that you have just one heading. This is because it shows the main activity of your particular website. So H1 is the most important heading. So following the H1 is the H2, and H2 follows the hierarchy where H1 is the highest hierarchy. Next is the H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6. So whichever of these tags elements you use will signify how important your text, which is contained inside, is. So generally, a search engine will automatically conclude that heading 1 is the most important title on my page, is the most important thing, that when people search for me on the internet, they should see me based on what is written inside heading 1. Now, that is just the H1. So we have several other elements. We have the P element, which signifies a paragraph. We have the I, which is italics. We have the strong. The A is the anchor tag. The div, span. We have those under the list. The other list, that's the UL. On other list UL, other list OL, then LI for list item. So just list of common elements. We're going to look at these elements in detail, so do not worry yourself. Now, after this, we want to look at the basic structure or the basic thing that every HTML page must have. What is that thing that every HTML page must have? So every HTML page must have the doc type declaration. And as you can see here, this is a doc type that I've just written. So it's doc type HTML. Every page must start with this particular line, doc type HTML. It tells the browser the type of HTML you're writing. So since HTML5 has been called just HTML, that's why it is saying doc type HTML. So which is document type is HTML5. That is what this doc type actually means. Then following the doc type is the HTML tag. Very important tag. You can't miss this tag. This tag must be on all your web pages. All your web pages must have the HTML tag because in it is going to be housed every other element. Is the root element in your web page. Every other element is going to be inside this HTML element. Now, inside the HTML element, there are two base elements that must be within these elements. The first one is the head element. And inside the head elements, there must be a title element. So this title is, let's say, my page title. So this title is what shows up at the top of the browser. We're going to see how that shows in a moment. So immediately after the head element, still within the HTML element is the body element. Is the body element. Now, inside the body element is where it houses everything that displays on the browser. So if I say hello world, this is what will be displayed in our browser. So we go back to our browser, and if we refresh this page, you see the hello world. Now, something interesting is when you look at the top of our page now, up here, you see that title that we gave it, my page title. That title we gave it, my page title. So that is how it plays out. So let's come back to our browser here and let me show you something. Now, if you see this link here, this particular one that says HTML Wikipedia, if I click on this page and the page opens, look up here, you see that the title of this page is also HTML Wikipedia. Just to tell you how important your title is, if your stuff pops up on the search engine, it uses your page title as the title that you see here. So whatever it is that you put as a page title, very important that your page title is descriptive enough for people to understand that, okay, look at the site I am going into or what may be contained inside that particular site. So, but your title must be very concise and short. Concise and short. If you can see, these are just very short titles. This just says HTML Wikipedia. This one says Introduction to HTML W3 Schools. You get? So they are very, very concise and straight to the point. You don't need to write very long titles. Now, these are the basic things you must see in your web page. Every web page must contain these things that we have just written. So there are some other things that accompany this web page. Things like we need to define the language, and for us it is English, so that the HTML knows that this code is written in English. Then there are some few other stuff that are added, but basically this is the base. What do you call it? This base elements that must be inside your HTML page. So I'm going to like rub this off, clean it, and do something inside here. Now, if you are using Sublime Text, once you do the opening brackets and type HTML, it shows you an option that you can use to create a basic, that's the basic setup. That's basic setup that you will always write. So this is because since you are going to always write that basic setup, which we call boilerplate, then there will be no need for you to cram it or memorize it. All you just need to do is just know how to call it. So if you're using the Sublime Text, it's HTML. Once you type the HTML, it will show you, you open the brackets, first do the opening brackets, then HTML. So that's how it works on the Sublime. But for VS Code, if you also have your VS Code, once you do exclamation, you press tab, and you see the basic template just generated for us. So let us just look at some few things that we will cover in the basic templates. There is some elements here which are self-closing, as you can see. They don't have, so let me just add this. They don't have, so these are all self-closing elements in that they don't have children, so there will be no need for it to have a closing tag. Instead, they close by themselves. So they close by themselves. Now we have this particular one here, which defines the type of characters that are found on your web page. You don't need to memorize this. In the future, if you need to understand this, you can just go to your Google and just type in meta tag and read about meta tag in your spare time. So we'll be talking much about meta tag. So you read about meta tag in your spare time. Now, having seen how to create this basic web page, we're now going to go further to now examine all these elements individually. So we'll see what they can do and what they cannot do. So we spoke about, so I'm going to leave this page. I'll be creating a new file. So let me open the folder we are going to be working with. Okay, we have somebody waiting. Right, so this is the folder we're going to be working with. And here you can see this is our web page that we just created. Then I'm going to be, you're welcome, Chinonye.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. We are moving at the speed of light. There's a video of what I've discussed so far. You can always, we are going to make it available so you can go back to it. But where we are is not too far. You can just, join in with us because I'm about to talk about some wonderful elements. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So now we want to look at the heading elements. We looked at it initially, but we're going to look at it now in more details. So the heading elements. So inside my folder, I'm creating this file. Before I proceed, every HTML file you are creating must follow this pattern. The name of the file, as you can see, heading, followed by .html. Very important, so that it is identified as a HTML document. Are you with me? So it is identified as a HTML document. So after creating this, I'm going to import boilerplates like this. Then I'm going to give our title heading. So I'll just call it HTML heading. Now, inside the body of this page, we're going to create different headings. And we looked at it before. So we say, we have the H1, which is the heading 1. And we have the H2, which is the heading 2. We have the H3, which is the heading 3. The H4, which is the heading 4. The H5, which is the heading 5. And the last one, and the list. You know, they say last but not the least, but this is the last and the least. So it is the last one and the least. So it is the H6, which is the heading 6. So the hierarchy of this is that H1 is higher than H2. H2 is higher than H3. Then H3 is higher than H4. Then H4 is higher than H5. Then H5 is higher than H6. So this is the hierarchy of the headings we have in HTML. Now, we'll create another file and let us look at the paragraph tag. So I right click here and I'll create a new file. I'll call it paragraph.html. Oops, HTML. Yep. So if we go back to our cheat sheets, I think we have, yeah, so this is the paragraph tag is the P tag, as you can see on our cheat sheets. Sorry, I didn't mention that on our cheat sheet, we have this sample of how, oh, wow, I'm just seeing that I made a mistake in the text I wrote. This is supposed to be a sample of our basic HTML, sample of our basic HTML. So you have it all in the cheat sheets. In fact, if you can know all what is in the cheat sheet, you are good to go with HTML. The rest is just for you to know how to manipulate your work for you to do what you want it to do. So maybe before I share this, I'll quickly make an edit on this particular part so we can have the correct version of this cheat sheets. So we want to look at a paragraph. So as usual, I'll start with my boilerplate. So it is called boilerplate. Then I'm going to call this sorry, I like to put HTML in front. So HTML paragraph. HTML paragraph. So now in the body of the paragraph, we're going to quickly write a paragraph. So to use the paragraph element, all we don't need to do is to do the P tag. So this is the P tag. So you see the opening tag. Let me press enter so to see. So this is the opening tag and this is the closing tag. So within it, oops, mistakenly pressed end again. So within it is the children. So we can have several children. So remember I said the children can be other elements or text. So for us here now, we're just going to do text. So just say this is a paragraph element. So that's just what we want to write. So just say this is a paragraph element. So when we save this and open in our browser, I'll come back to this file here. Oops, what did I copy and paste? Control V, Control V. Oh. So copy paths, Control A, Control V. Yep. So as you can see, we have this text here showing that this is a paragraph. And if you look up here, you see we have our title that says HTML paragraph. Now, a paragraph is just the same, just does the same function like you have paragraph in your text, maybe your letter in your document, just the way you have a paragraph. That's what the paragraph does here. So it just creates a kind of paragraph or creates a container that houses stuffs which belong to the same paragraph. So that's what the paragraph tag does. So another tag we'll look at is the I tag and the strong tag. So let's just open a new file. Let's call it emphasis.html. So I'll call the boilerplate and we'll do HTML emphasis, right? Now, the usefulness of the I tag and the strong tag is what we want to look at. The I tag stands for italics. So in your projects, you want to emphasize on something or state maybe an author's name. So just for you to emphasize that this is kind of like something else in your page, you want to use the italic tag. So let's say we have a paragraph text that says this is a paragraph tag with italics. I know you must have been hearing me saying tag elements, tag elements. An element is the complete line like this complete line, starting from the opening tag, these child elements, and the closing tag, that's the elements. While the tag is just this. So this is a tag. So like we call it the opening tag, and this is a tag, we call it the closing tag. So sometimes, due to speech, I may interchange them. I may call it tag, I may call it element, but I'm referring to the same things. Then I'm referring to the same thing. Now, here we say this paragraph, this is a paragraph tag with italics. So the italics, I'm going to just use the I tag here, then type italics like this, like so. Sorry, let me close this sidebar so that we can be seeing what we're doing here. Then once I save this, I open it in my browser. So as you can see here, let me zoom this in a little bit. Excuse me. As you can see here, you can see that this text is actually italicized. Others are looking regular, but this has been italicized. That's because the strong tag, the italics tag makes the element to look like an italic. Now, I'll create another paragraph tag here and say this paragraph contains a strong element. So this strong, I'm just going to put the strong elements around it. So this is supposed to be the closing strong. Sorry, not P, strong. And this is supposed to be the opening strong. Yeah, so we have this. So when I save this and refresh my browser, so you can see that every other thing is normal, but this one shows bold, just to lay emphasis that this particular text is emphasized as an important text. That is why we use the strong tag. Now, another tag we look at is the anchor tag, which we use for linking either from other web pages or from within our own page. So to do that, we're going to create a new file and we call it anchor.html. Please, I have been talking. I hope you are following me or trying to even do what I'm doing.
Yes. But why do you keep opening HTML? Can't all these things be done on a page?
Oh, yes. The reason I'm doing that is I'm going to also provide these files after the class. So you can also look at it and know what we discussed. If I do everything inside one page, everything will be so clumsy and you will not be able to identify the things we covered in each class. Okay. Yes, that is what I'm doing.
Okay. Yes.
Thanks for your observation.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So it's good that you're following me. I don't know. I may be talking very fast. That's because I'm trying to cover as much as we can so that we'll get ready for exercise. which is the main thing we came for, exercise. We want to exercise. We want to exercise our hand. It's not about, I know HTML tag. Oh yeah, use it now. I know CSS. Oh yeah, use it. That is what we want to do. So we are going to be doing a lot of hands-on. Wow. It's 8 o'clock already. How comes our meeting is still, okay, we are less than, why? I don't know. We are less than 5, I guess. Maybe that's why our meeting is still going on. But I may need to end the lesson very soon because I need to start going home. I'm actually still in my office and it's getting late. Wow. So let's just look at the anchor tag. Then I'll check the remaining stuff we have so that I can know if we'll continue tomorrow. We actually started this class later than I expected. Archie Emmanuel wants to enter the... Okay, so anchor. So the... Oops. So now the anchor is actually a link that we use it to, you know, refer to either other pages on our website or to an external web page. So we're going to look at those two links. So I'm going to create one anchor tag here. Now, if you notice, my code editor already added this particular attribute for me, which is called the href. It is within this href that I point to where I am going to. It is pronounced href, which is short for hyper reference. You must have been seeing that maybe on your Word documents or PowerPoint, whichever one. You must have seen this kind of referencing. So we use this to reference to either a site outside our web page or within our web page. Now, to link to, say, a site outside our web page, all we just need to do is write the absolute URL of that particular web page. So for us here now, we want to link to google.com. Now, to link to google.com, all I just need to do is to type the https://google.com. That's the link to go to Google. Then after putting the link, we now need to write the text that will show so that we can click on that text on our web page. For you to understand what I mean, I'm going to save this and open it in our browser. So as you can see, there's nothing showing on our browser. That's because I didn't give my anchor link a name. So let me give it a name and call this Google. Now, when I save and refresh in my browser, you see the link shows up. And when I hover over the link, if you look down, please look down my browser there. You see it is showing me where this link is going to take me to if I click on it. Now, when I click on this link, my page refreshes and it shows google.com. So we have just successfully used the anchor tag to link to an external web page. There are several tags that go along with this anchor tag. There are several attributes, sorry. We have not looked at attributes, but we're going to be using it for a while before I'm going to explain what an attribute is. So the attributes gives more power to an element. So the attribute we're going to use now is the target attributes. So target attributes. If you notice, when we click on this, the Google page opens up inside the same tab, right? The Google page opens inside the same tab with our own page. But if this is my website, I wouldn't want users to leave my website completely. I want my website to still be always open on their web page. So to achieve that, I have to give this target a target of blank. So target underscore blank. If that's the way they spell blank. So blank. Now, when I get back here and refresh this page, by the time I click on this Google link again, you see it opens Google in another tab. So you can see the attribute target has given an extra power to my anchor elements. So that's the usefulness of the attributes. It gives extra ability to elements. So you can see, I can come back to my own page now. So if this were to be a real life situation, you can see that it is better that my page is always open on your site so that, I can get some more traffic, if maybe for people who are on Google AdSense, Google AdSense, you want to make some money, your site needs to be visited at all times. So you don't want people to be leaving your site. You want people to always be on your site. Imagine you have a store where you are selling stuff. You don't want people to leave your site. You want people to always be on your site. So that is the anchor tag and its use. So how do we now link pages within our own website, within our own container? So to do that, let's use the break tag. Don't worry about the break tag. We're going to see what it does later. We use the break tag and we do an anchor tag here again. Then this time around, in the href, let me open my sidebar. We want to link it to, say, the heading.html. To do that, all we just need to do is to type heading dot. Is that somebody trying to enter the class? So my second screen is off because they're just taking the lights. So I'm not be able to see when somebody is trying to enter. Okay. Well, we are rounding up actually. I should be done in the next 5 minutes. I'm just going to explain some few concepts with linking page within our stuff, and I'll end the class for today. All right. So I want to link to that heading file that we created. So HTML. Then you are welcome user. You probably have to rename so we know your name. And you are in fact very late because the class is about to end. Though there is a video recording of this particular class. It's going to be made available after the class, and there's going to also be a compressed version of these files that we have created so that you can, open them and peruse and see what we have done so far today, just in case you want to follow us when you are watching this video at any time. Now, as usual, I'm going to add.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah. Hello.
On the back of the kitchen.
Sorry. Come again. Okay, he seems to have a network issue, but I can't really hear him. So now I've refreshed my browser and you can see the heading link now showing here. So if I click on this link, it takes me to the heading part of my web page. So this is how you link within your own web page. You know how you have your website and you have the home page, about us, contact us. So if you want to link to different pages on your web page, this is how you link them. So you use the anchor tag, and within the href, you specify the path. You specify the path to which the link, to which the page is. So I'm going to stop here. Tomorrow we will continue from. We're going to continue tomorrow from absolute and relative paths. That is here. Okay, yeah. So relative and absolute path. That's where we're going to continue from tomorrow. Please let us try and be on time so that we can make good use of this 1 hour. I'm sorry if I've been talking very fast. It's because I'm trying to cover a lot.
I have a question.
Okay. Yeah, you can ask your question. So we can.
Does this also apply to linking an existing web page? Like
an existing web page?
Like,
from another website or from where?
Yes, from another website.
Yes.
Like, this gossip stuff. want to copy somebody's this kind of a thing now.
Yeah, okay. Maybe there's a link.
What somebody posted somewhere.
Yes. I
That
just want to
page.
link it on your website.
Mm.
Yes, that's it. So
Yes.
if you copy the link from the person's website, see where we have this google.com here. That's where you place the link, you copy.
Okay.
Then maybe you just write maybe the person's name or something here, so that when people are reading, they can just click on it and, you know, get to it.
Okay.
Yeah. So thank you all for being in this class. Please, I would like to know each and every member of this particular class so that we can do follow-up. You can feel free to post questions on the platform. You get? So it's going to involve a lot of studying on a personal level. Studying on a personal level. So as we proceed, we are going to be having a lot of homeworks to do so that we can understand these concepts better. One thing I'm going to leave you with this night is the words of Albert Einstein. Let me then, you know, open this browser a little bit so that we can see that quotes very well. Very important quotes. It's something I always like to show developers when they're just, you know, starting up in this field. Okay, Nonye, yeah, I'll make the recording available. I don't, the quote is wasting time to open, but if you can see the top part of my, that's the title part of that particular article, you see, never memorize something that you can look up. That is a very important quote. I'm going to post it. Never memorize something you can look up. What am I trying to say? Everything we are going to be doing, don't bother yourself about memorizing them. Do not bother yourself about memorizing them. Because why? You can always look it up. For instance, I've created a cheat sheet that I'm going to also share, where it talks about HTML. Everything you need to know about HTML is actually on this cheat sheet. Any other thing, just an additional stuff. So don't bother yourself about cramming anything. I spoke about the basic elements you need to use. Don't bother yourself about cramming it. Just understand what it is and why it is there. Once you understand that, every other thing, you just know what to do. Anytime you get stuck, Google is your friend. So on this note, so thank you all for listening. I'll try to make sure that the video is made available tonight. If it's not possible tonight, you get it tomorrow morning. Bye.